Hello, friends. I miss you guys so much. It's Miss Sarah. We're going to do a little story time today. Since you guys have had so many home days, I thought that it would be fun to do a little bit of a story with you guys because I just miss you so much. So today we're going to do a story called The Best Nest. So this is a good story because it's about a mommy and a daddy bird who are looking for a good place to build their nest. So let's read this story. This is The Best Nest and it's by P.D. Eastman. Mr. Bird was happy. He was so happy he had to sing. This was Mr. Bird's song. I love my house, I love my nest, in all the world my nest is best. Then Mrs. Bird came out of the house. It's not the best nest, she said. I'm tired of this old place, said Mrs. Bird. I don't like it. Let's look for a new place right now. So they left the old place to look for a new one. This place looks nice, said Mr. Bird. Let's move into this tree. But somebody else had already moved in. So they looked at another house. This one looks nice, said Mr. Bird, and there's nobody in it. Do you think that the shoe would be a good house for them? I don't know. You're wrong, said Mrs. Bird. This house belongs to a foot. So they went on looking. I like this one, said Mr. Bird. It has a pretty red flag on the roof. Oh, I've always wanted a house with a flag, said Mrs. Bird. Maybe this place will be all right. What do you think about the mailbox? Is that going to be a good house? But it was not all right. I guess I made a mistake, said Mr. Bird. You make too many mistakes, said Mrs. Bird. I'm going to pick the next house. And here it is, right here. So if you look at the picture here, they're flying into a bell tower of a church. And in bell towers is bells. And they're very, very loud. So that might not be a good house for them. Let's see. They flew in. They looked around. Isn't it too big? Asked Mr. Bird. I like this big place, said Mrs. Bird. This is the place to build our new nest. They went right to work. They needed many things to build their nest. First, they got some hay. Then they got some straws and some broom straws. They got some sweater string. So they're getting everything they need to make their nest now. They got some stocking string and some mattress stuffing. They got some horsehair and they got some man hair. Soon they had all the hay, all the straw, all the string, all the stuffing, all the horsehair, and all the man hair that they could carry. They took it all back to build their nest. So look at all the different materials that they're using to build their nest. They had to work really hard to get all of their nesting materials. Mr. and Mrs. Bird worked very hard. It took them the rest of the morning to finish their nest. This nest really is the best, said Mrs. Bird. I want to stay here forever. So look at that nice nest. Mr. Bird was very happy too. He flew to the top of his house. He sang his song again. I love our house, I love our nest, in all the world our nest is best. He was so busy singing, he didn't even see Mr. Parker coming. Every day at 12 o'clock, Mr. Parker came to church. Mr. Parker came to pull a rope. The rope went up to the new bird's nest. Uh-oh. The rope rang the big bell right under Mrs. Bird's nest. Bong, bong, bong. Oh no, what do you think's going to happen in their nest? Mrs. Bird got out of there as fast as she could fly. Still ringing, bong, bong, bong. Oh, they can't live there, friends. They can't live there. When Mr. Bird came in, all he could see was a mess of hay and string and stuffing and horsehair and manhair and straws. But where was Mrs. Bird? Can't find her. I will look for her until I find her, said Mr. Bird. He looked high, he looked low, he looked everywhere for Mrs. Bird. Oh, he lost Mrs. Bird. He can't find her. He looked down into a chimney, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. He looked down into a water barrel, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Then he saw a big fat cat. There was a big fat smile on the fat cat's face. There was some pretty brown feathers near the fat cat's mouth. Oh, Mr. Bird began to cry. Oh dear, he cried, the big fat cat has eaten Mrs. Bird. Oh no, do you think the kitty cat ate Mrs. Bird? Let's see. Mr. Bird flew off. Oh, I'll never see Mrs. Bird again, he cried. It was getting dark, and it began to rain, and it rained harder and harder, and Mr. Bird could not see where he was going. Crash! Mr. Bird bumped into something. It was his old house. That old house that Mrs. Bird didn't like. I'll go inside, said Mr. Bird. I'll rest here until the rain stops. Mr. Bird went in, and there was Mrs. Bird sitting there singing, I love my house, I love my nest, in all the world this nest is best. You here, gasped Mr. Bird. I thought you didn't like this old nest. Mrs. Bird smiled. I used to not like it, she said, but a mother bird can change her mind. You see, there's no nest like an old nest for a brand new bird. Do you guys see the egg in the nest? And that's when the egg popped open and the new bird thought so too. Oh, look at the baby bird. Didn't that have a happy ending? Didn't that have a happy ending? So, remember how Mr. and Mrs. Bird used all those different things to build their nest? I have something for you to do at home with your mommies and daddies. So I have here a nesting tray. So I thought about some different things that birds might use to build their nest, because a lot of times, like whenever we've been on our nature walks outside, we have seen that birds use lots of different things. They'll use sticks, they'll use twigs, they'll use leaves, they'll use fur, they'll use straws. So I found a couple things at my house here that birds might use. So I found some yarn, I found a bird feather, I found some paper, I found a straw, I found some pipe cleaners, maybe some cotton balls. If you have a kitty cat or a doggy at your house, you can use their fur. They like to use fur to build nests. And what you can do is you can find different things that you think that birds might use to build their nests and put them on a tray. And then you're going to leave this outside and you're going to check on it every day and see if the birds have taken anything from here to build their nests. Because now that it's springtime, there's a lot of birds that are building nests right now. So if the birds take things from your tray, you can walk around the neighborhood with your mommies and daddies and see if you can see any of the bird nests that they made. Maybe if you use something like really bright like this, you might see that hanging in a bird's nest in a tree if you use your really good looking eyes, okay? So that's just something fun that you can do at home with your mommies and daddies. And that's all for today. Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you soon, and I wish you all very, very well.